Hey everyone. If you could, Jay is sharing his screen and he's going to be sharing his screen for the majority of the workshop. You'll see it. It says protest poetry, art making. You can just change the slide. It says, no, go back. You can go to the next one. It says free write. So if you want to go ahead and pin that to the top, you also got it emailed to you. So whichever way you want to look at it, but this is the PowerPoint we'll be using as we go along. My name is Katie. I'm a white woman. I have blonde hair and a pink shirt. And behind me, you're going to see a bunch of books and a little yellow ukulele. And we're going to do more formal introductions in a minute. But first, we want to kick off with a short free write. Many of you probably know what a free write is, and normally I would ask, but since there's so many, there's 50 people, I think we're gonna have to skip a lot of questions and call and responses. So free write is for 5 minutes. You're gonna write nonstop, and you're just gonna keep writing whatever comes to your head. If you don't know what to write, my rule is you write, I don't know what to write, over and over again until you do. And the prompt we're giving you is the question, what is a citizen? And I also want to give the caveat that citizen can be a problematic word in these times. And usually when we explore this term with our students, we've had several days to unpack it, several classes. So we're going to pretend you're all my students and we've unpacked this word together. And now this is our free write for today. So I'm going to put the timer on. And Kim, if we could put the music back on for 5 minutes. And start.
Katie, we won't be able to share music while another screen is shared, but.
Okay, we'll leave it without music. That's fine.
We have about 5 seconds left. And this time we are asking you to bring your sentence to a close. Your last bit of statements, you could try to wrap it up, and we will be continuing. I want to first introduce myself and then also what our agenda is today. My name is Jay Howard. I'm a teaching artist. I'll give a more formal introduction in a bit. But what we are going to do, we just first did a free write. Our playlist is looking like an entrance ticket. We will give you welcome and introductions. We will also have an opening where we examine our ways of seeing inside and outside the classrooms. We will have writing stations where you will get a chance to experience different aspects of poetry, and a creative check-in, which is our meetup to see what we worked on. We'll have opportunities for breakout rooms, a community share out. We'll wrap up with a reflection and closing and give you some additional resources. I will first say that Community Word Project is a New York City arts education organization. And we also work with the Teaching Artist Project, which is a collective of diversity experience arts. We train artists to become teaching artists inside the classroom. And if you are looking to be self-reflective, justice-oriented learning practice, we now have sessions open for our TAP 2020 fall sessions. I am Jay Howard, and I will say first that I am from the Bronx. I love poetry, I love hip hop, and I love chocolate. I try to create a world where all those things can come together. So I first got my start working with youth, with incarcerated youth, with the Office of Children and Family Services. I found TAP back in 2014, 2015, as I was looking for ways to bring more alignment into my own practice. And I've been teaching with Community Word Project ever since, along with some other organizations as well. So for today, we just have a few housekeeping rules, which is just to please mute yourself. If you have questions, I promise we will get to them. You can put them in the chat box. Take care of yourself if you need to. Do whatever you need to feel comfortable. Because our goals for today, we just want to gain a new toolkit of activities that can be done virtually. We're going to encourage community activism in our students, and just to bring some more social justice skills into our teaching. I want to toss it over to Katie to introduce herself.
So my name is Katie Rainey. I'm a writer and a mixed media arts person. I'm also the director of the Teaching Artists Project. So Jay and I work together to train artists to become teaching artists, or give advanced teaching artists a chance to level up their skills. I've been a teaching artist for over 10 years. I'm also a part of the Teaching Artists Affairs Committee at the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable, and so is Jay. A lot of things to list off, I just realized as I'm saying this. There's more about me in my bio. I have a cute little corgi lab mix that's 13 years old, and she's the love of my life. And she's probably going to whine at me during this workshop, so I apologize.
Thank you, Katie. We will be continuing today just looking at what is a citizen. So that is our theme. And today you will see different aspects of that. So what we first want to invite you to do is to think of, what do you think of when you hear the word citizen? Inside your packets, there is a link, and we will also drop it into the chat box as well. You're going to create a graffiti wall, which is a word wall of synonyms, antonyms, and everything in between. You may also include it in the chat box if you like, but what are the words or a word that you think of when you hear the word citizen? Your Mentimeter will look something like this. You can actually enter a word at a time. You can also include words from your free write. If you have something from your free write that you want to include a certain word, please add it to that. We will put a timer on this for about 2 to 3 minutes. Think about, what is the word citizen? What do you like to add to our community graffiti wall? And we will display it for you all as well. It might accept a short phrase. You can try it, but I'm pretty sure it might accept a short phrase. But you can also enter in the chat and we can see it there as well. So as you see, our Mentimeter is coming to life and our graffiti wall is taking shape. So please continue to add your words. What do you think of when you hear the word citizen? And we will take a look at our Mentimeter graffiti wall of citizen. I'm going to ask Katie to help me out, and we're just going to shout out some of the words that we just see here before we move on. Community, person, respect, social norms, diverse, belonging to a place, society, life, privilege.
Let's see, we got accountability. I see diverse, New York. We've got, ooh, it's really tiny for my eyes. I don't know if you said it, accountability, member, vote, inequitable access, home turf, location, survivor, identity, place. A lot of really great ones. Loaded. I like that one. It's definitely a loaded word.
Weaponize, I like that word. Home turf, underrepresented. So you see we have different understandings and we come into different encounters of what a citizen might mean to us. You will definitely have access to this and we will give you a copy of this word cloud. We are going to also look at our own individual ways of seeing, and that is like teaching resistance through art and literature. I like to think of this way of ways of seeing that term. I first encountered it through the book, Ways of Seeing by John Berger, and I've also been reintroduced to it during these times, just looking at what is going on and trying to find ways that we can interpret and or respond to it. Ways that we can teach resistance through art and literature inside and outside of a classroom. The first is just bringing in a diverse set of artists, introducing those into your classroom to highlight the experiences of marginalized voices, giving your students an opportunity to reach and to learn from the experience of these marginalized voices. They can find relationships between these writers, they can find relationships between these works of art. You will see later on in the packet that you will have access to something called A through Z list of artists and cultural icons of color. We encourage you to bring all different artists, literary artists, visual artists inside your classroom. One thing I do with my students is this A through Z list. First together, we bring in the artists we first know, so I can find out some of the artists that they know. And then I also add some of my artists to this list, and together we build a collaborative list, and we start to uncover certain of these artists as we move throughout our workshop and throughout our semester. Other ways that we can continue to teach resistance through art and literature is just that multidisciplinary lens, as I was mentioning, using one discipline to inspire other ideas and to unlock different mediums and interpretations. Sometimes I find that we don't always have the words, or our students might not always have the words, but if they could look at something else and be inspired by it, and they can be able to interpret and come to an understanding and find the words themselves. So using other genres, other art forms, so they can write their own things. We want to create opportunities for our students. Community and art really go hand to hand. So how can you use the community as a resource to both support and be inspired by it? There are ways that we can include the community inside our classroom, whether that's bringing our students into different museums, different local field trips, or inviting these artists inside our classrooms. Finally, a resource list: what books, music, or content challenges the idea of our visual representation or concept of a citizen. I encourage you to bring different visual artists, different music artists to kind of challenge these. What that could look like potentially is you can simply bring in album covers. You can bring in magazine covers. You can bring in book covers, and find ways to ask questions that allows conversations. So we are going to try that out and test that out together. First, we have these different visual images. The first one you might see is a book cover from Citizen. The second one in the middle is a album cover from Kendrick Lamar, To Pimp a Butterfly. And the third image is from a visual artist, and that is called 2020 Vision. We ask you to which image closely resembles the climate of our current times. We are going to launch a poll, and you can also just vote on which image you think signifies this current times. Use the chat box to tell us why you chose that image or what that image signifies to you.
Just going to give folks a little bit longer to answer. We've got about half of our attendees have answered so far.
We definitely encourage you to use the chat box to say maybe why you chose an image or which image you chose as well.
I'm going to leave the poll up for about 20 more seconds for anyone who hasn't voted. All right, I'm going to share these results now.
We all have access to the poll results, and we have 56% showing that protest image. I do also just want to recognize and highlight the artist behind the image, and they go by Artistically Lit, and they use art as a medium to talk about activism. So the merger between art and protest happens here. This piece was called 2020 Vision, and just looking at how we challenge if Black Lives Matter. So definitely find ways to introduce local artists, community artists, and different artists inside your classrooms to launch conversations, but also to introduce them to different sets of artists as examples of ways your art can be used as protest. We also want to show you some more ways you could do that. And I am just encouraged by the stuff that I see. So conscious art creates a collective dialogue around identity, culture, and history while inspiring ideas for individual student writings. I tend to choose pictures or images that challenge normal traditional society standards, or ones that tend to highlight marginalized voices. So we can find these from well-known magazines such as Time, The New Yorker, who make commentary on things. But we also find them below, as you see to the right, between album covers, current and past. So we can have conversations from old album covers, new album covers, to see if history repeats itself, but also ways we can reflect on our own understandings and desires of the moment at the time. We have artists who are currently doing that and using their music or their platforms to kind of elevate or kind of have these social dialogues. Visual artists one, music is one. Have these conversations across mediums, and we can write to them as well. We will also have opportunities later in this workshop where we could brainstorm together more ways we can teach resistance through art and literature. We also white political resources in this as well. So when you see your packet, you will have resources to different materials, like such as the 13th that we linked as well. So please look out for those.
Sorry, I was reading. Oh, I think that's in response. I thought someone needed help. Never mind, on the chat. Thanks, Jay. Yeah, so I just wanted to before we move on any further, call out that this workshop that we've built together today is kind of a mashup of what Jay and I do in our classroom. And Jay just talked about a lot of things that he brings into his classroom. One thing I do with my students, because I teach 9th graders, is a unit that I call Citizen Uncensored. We study Claudia Rankine's book, Citizen, which you saw at the beginning with the hood on the cover, and we actually start with the cover and unpack that together. If you have not read Citizen by Claudia Rankine, I highly recommend, please go do that. And we spend a lot of time unpacking the book, unpacking what my students feel, the term citizen, like we talked about. And that's just, I wanted to give a brief context about the unit. And so going forward, we're going to explore a bunch of different activities that we bring into the classroom that you can use. And I did want to echo what Jay said about the multidisciplinary lens. While it says protest poetry in our title, and we're both writers, we both bring multiple art forms into our classroom, and you're going to see some of that in just a minute in our first big activity. So this next 20 minutes or so is going to be some individual writing time, some exploration. And this is called Poetry Stations. So what I normally do in my classroom, if we were in person, is I have the stations set up around the room, and I would walk my students to each one and talk about it. I've since had to move that work online, and I've turned actually each station kind of into a different lesson, but you can still do a couple of poetry stations online with your students if you want. And as we go along, you're going to see examples. I'm not going to read all the examples. I'm going to read the slides, make sure everyone hears that. But I encourage you to go through and read those examples. Those are what my students just wrote. We just got done in May, June. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So the challenge for today is for you all to visit 2 poetry stations, one that you're really drawn to, and one that you think is a bit of a challenge. And you're going to create at least 1 poem from that work, from one of those stations. And then a tip is to use your free write from earlier and to think about the words that you put into the word wall and how can we use those in the poems we're about to write. All right, Jay, you can go to the next one. I'm going to go through the stations and read them all, and then we're going to break into individual time. If you have questions about the station, Jay and I are going to be here, and I'm happy to answer those, but I know some people are like, I get it. I want to go start making my poem right now, so you'll have that option. So a concrete poem is essentially a visual poem. A concrete poem is a poem in which the typographical effect or arrangement of words is more important in conveying meaning than verbal significance. It is sometimes referred to as a visual poetry. That's a big definition, but I wanted to make sure we had it. Essentially, a concrete poem is in the shape of the thing it's talking about. And you'll see some examples from some of my students. The wedding dress is a really interesting one, and it's directly in response to what is a citizen. Actually, all 3 are. But you'll see it's a Black woman with a wedding gown, and then if you start to read the dress, it gets a little more intense. The tools that I want you to explore in this station are your font and your composition. So what font are you using for your words? What's the structure on the page? Like my student who had a thumbprint as a face and did it in a circle here. All right, Jay, you can go to the next one. Next station is narrative poems. A narrative poem is a form of poetry that tells a story, often making the voices of a narrator and characters as well. So that's pretty simple. A narrative poem is a poem that tells a story, right? And your tools are going to be your inciting incident, so what kicks off your poem, your rising action, what escalates it, your climax, what's the highest point of drama in your poem, and the resolution. Does it come to a conclusion or not? And you'll see my students this started out as as a narrative poem. It takes a little bit more of a, she moved a lot of things around, but it definitely started out as a narrative poem. If you visit this station, I suggest doing a 4-line poem with your inciting incident, your rising action, your climax, and your resolution. All right, Jay, we can go to the next one. Spoken word sound poems. I think we all have heard maybe a spoken word or sound poem in our lives. I will say they are spoken word or sound because some people are drawn more to reading aloud. A sound poem is just a poem that's designed to be read aloud. It does not necessarily mean you have to, but it will have like tools like alliteration in it, assonance, onomatopoeia, rhyme. And if you want to hear a spoken word poem, you can click on that link later during your time and hear one of my students read her spoken word poem. Okay, next one. Cliche poems. So this is a really fun one. Cliche refers to an expression that has been overused to the extent that it loses its original meaning or novelty. So we're just thinking about things that have been overused. I like my students to think about things in the world today, like what is said over and over in our world today. And you will see that Justine started it with saying, I'm not saying all lives don't matter, because she was really frustrated with hearing all lives don't matter, all lives matter over and over again. So she took that and flipped it on its head. And so you're just really working with cliches in this one. Take a couple that you hear in the world around you, and how can you think about how you can invert them into a new expression. All right, we can go to the next one. I'm almost done talking at everyone. Found art poems. It's a type of poetry created by taking words, phrases, and sometimes whole passages from other sources and reframing them by making changes in spacing and lines, or by adding or deleting text, thus imparting new meaning. So different types of found poems are blackout poetry. Some of you may have done that one, which is the example on the top, where you're blacking out words in a text. And then some of you may have done cut-up poems, which is the bottom example, where you take cut-ups out of magazines and glue them onto a sheet of paper to make a new poem. And so you're really thinking about your line break, your stanzas. Obviously, if we were in a class together, we would have sessions already about lines, line breaks, what those look like. So the definitions are here if you need to revisit them. Go to the last one, Jay. Last one is probably my favorite one, metaphor poems. A metaphor poem includes a comparison that is made directly or less directly, but in any case without pointing out a similarity by using words such as like or as or than. So we know a metaphor as a comparison of two things, not using like or as. Does anybody know what it's called when you use like or as? You can type it in the chat. Yeah, simile, right? Great. So metaphors are opposite. In this station, you get a math equation. Didn't expect that, did you? So our math equation is adjective plus noun equals abstract noun. So we know what adjectives are, right? They describe a noun. We know what nouns are, person, place, or thing. Abstract noun might be a new thing to some people. An abstract noun is an idea, quality, or state. It's a noun that can't be touched. So drop in the chat some examples of abstract nouns. I'll say that freedom, the word freedom, is an abstract noun. Love, justice, yeah, love. Respect, yeah. Peace, yeah, these are great. Independence, liberty, happiness, belonging, absolutely. So in this station, you're gonna create your own math equation. You're gonna put in your own adjective, your own noun, and then your own abstract noun. And you're gonna create a metaphor. That's gonna be your metaphor. You'll see at the bottom, my student Ashley wrote her metaphor was freedom is a Black America. And then she wrote a response to that metaphor in this poem. So that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna take the metaphor, your new metaphor, and write a poem in response to it. That was all 6, right, Jay? Oh, yeah, great. So we have concrete poems, narrative poems, found art poems, spoken word or sound poems, cliche poems, or metaphor poems. Pick 2 and go visit them during this time. One that you think might be a real challenge for you and one that you're really drawn to, and pick one to create at least one poem out of during this time. We're gonna have 20 minutes, I think, maybe, I don't know about time yet. And we're gonna stay here, Jay and I. If you have any questions about anything you read, you can come ask us. Otherwise, you are free to go create for a little bit. We're gonna come back at 5 o'clock, Jay. Let's say
do 15.
4:55. 4:55, please. Could we put up the first poem again? Yes, we can, and it's also in your packet. Everything is in. Kinsey, can we drop a link to to this PDF?
Yes, I'll get it right now.
Great, thank you. So if you're ready to go create, please go. You're free to do so. Yes, we're gonna drop the packet in just a second. There we go.
I think I might have figured out a way to share the music as well. So let's see if that works. If you'd like, Jay and Katie.
I think Jay, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Try it out, and if not, we'll figure out a backup plan.
Cool.
Great, thanks. You want to put it on the very first slide, Jay, that has the chat. Thanks.
It won't let me, but Katie and Jay, I'll message you privately. I think I have a workaround.
Okay. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them, unmute, or put in the chat. Does anyone still need the link to the packet?
first name Sally. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Spotlight on Otis ready now. Sing bam, 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 bam. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Get it, Otis. Spotlight on James Brown, y'all. He's the king of them all, y'all. He's the king of them all, y'all. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Do you like good music? That sweet soul music. Just go over and swing it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I got to get the feeling. I got to get the feeling. Do you like good music? That sweet soul music. Help me get the feeling. I won't forget the feeling. On this ready, got the feeling. James Brown, he got the feeling. Oh, I love when the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we've seen. No, I won't be afraid.
Go ahead and if you're wondering what topic you jump off from, please use your free write from the beginning, the what is a citizen, and the words that we put into the word wall. If you weren't here for that, please think about the question, what is a citizen, as you're writing these.
Afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Now, darling, whenever I'm in trouble, darling, won't you stand? I need just a little helping hand right now. And darling, won't you stand by me? If the sky look upon another, should tumble and fall of the mountain, may crumble to the sea. I won't cry, no, I won't shed no tears. Just as long as you stand by me. Now, darling, I said I need somebody right now. I need just a little helping hand. Need someone to come pick me up and let me stand by me. Come on now, baby. Yeah. Baby. Whoa. Come on and stand by me. And darling, stand by me. Come on, pretty baby. Stand by me. Come on and help me, baby. I need a little love. Come on and stand right by me. Whenever I'm in trouble, won't you stand? Come on and stand by me. Man, baby. Come on. I need a little love. Put a spell on you. Cause you're mine. better stop the things you do. I ain't lying. No, I ain't lying. You know I can't stand it. You're running around. You know better, Daddy. I can't stand it 'cause you put me down. Yeah, yeah. I put a spell on you. Because you're mine. You're mine. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you anyhow. And I don't care if you don't want me. I'm yours right now. Oh, you hear me? I put a spell on you. Because you're mine. I wish I knew how it would feel
3-minute
to
warning.
be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I should say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole round world to hear. I wish I could share all the love that's in my heart. Remove all the bars that keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me. Then you'd see and agree that every man should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I wish I could do all the things that I can do, though I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. Well, I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if by my heart I could fly. I'd soar to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing, 'cause I know, yeah. Not sing, 'cause I know, yeah. And I'd sing, 'cause I know,
Start to finish your poem, whatever you're working on.
When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, or the mountain should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by
All
me.
right, Kim, can you shut down the music? Great. Oh, where did your screen go, Jay?
Coming back.
That was me sharing, so I'm going to have Jay, you share your screen.
Got it.
Great.
So as we are coming back, we want to encourage you to donate your favorite line into the chat box. A line that you wrote in your poem or your writing, donate it into the chat box, and we want to do something special with it. We are going to be thinking about, for our creative check-in, how do we promote student inquiry and creative responses through collaborative art projects? That is the question that we are going to be thinking of. And in doing that, we are going to get into some breakout groups. Before we get into breakout groups, we're going to intro some things we want you to think about. But when you are in your breakout groups, please introduce yourselves. You're also going to share your favorite line from your poem. And you are going to work on a collaborative project as a group that incorporates your writings. It doesn't have to be a finished product. It can just be the idea of the product itself. And we kind of want you to also to share your ideas. So we'll give you access to a Google Doc resource. You're going to brainstorm as a group different resources that we can share in the second document. So what that looks like of like different example projects we can take on as far as bringing in collaborative art projects. Katie and I have a few examples that we do, and then we invite you all to brainstorm together. The first is postcards and letters, creating postcards and letters to local national officials, and artistic inquiries of social change. They could just be postcards to strangers, postcards to people they know, and also to local and community officials.
I will say that recently my students, the poems that you read as examples, we compiled like 90 of those because all of them wrote poems, and we sent them to the mayor and their city council member. And we're kind of trying to figure out who else to send it to right now, but as one example of what to do with their poetry. And a few of them got them published in online literary journals, which was really, really great just for them in general getting a publication, but also to be able to share that poem out there. And then community poems are a great way, and we will show you what a community poem is in a bit.
And definitely looking at music and lyrics. One thing that we do, we unpack songs and then kind of write our own takes to it. And we turn our community poems into our own songs. We also love anthologies, getting our students a chance to have their voices together in a collective manner, but also producing the visuals that come with it and the poems. murals and collaborative projects such as PSAs have been done, and we've used student poetry and essays to inspire PSAs, and then I've done it at my Zone 126 schools where we had a screening and invited the entire school to all of our PSAs and use it as a day to premiere. So different ways that we can invite our students to collaborate and voices. We're going to ask you to get into some breakout groups and invite you to share these resources. You're getting a link for 2 different things. One, to put down the stuff that your group is working on, and the second, to brainstorm a list of resources. Just quickly, the resource sheet might look like diverse artists, create opportunities, multidisciplinary lens, and resource list, those ideas that we first pondered when we first got together. And we want you to either choose just one category as a group, or as a group you can find ways to donate to different parts of it. First and foremost, when you get into your groups, I'll leave this on the screen of what you are to do. You will have about 15 minutes in your groups to share your favorite lines and brainstorm together.
And if you have questions, we're going to stay in the main room and you can come ask us.
Great. So right before I split everyone into breakout groups, you're going to be in groups of about 5 to 6. I am sharing again right now. The most recent link that I shared is this presentation. Again, when you go into breakout rooms, you won't be able to see Jay's shared screen. If you scroll up on your chat, you'll be able to access the other 2 documents as well. And I also did an abbreviated version of the directions for your breakouts in the chat. So when you move into your breakout room, you'll still have that. Just scroll up if you get lost. I am going to open the breakout rooms now. And as Jay and Katie said, if you have a question, you can always just exit your breakout room, come back here to the main room, and this is where we'll be. Alrighty, let's see. I am going to open the rooms now.
We are making our way back into the main room after breaking out for some further brainstorm about different ways we could enhance our student voices, but also find ways to share, yes, we need more time. That is the one thing our students say after we start getting into it. And we definitely recognize that feeling of like, we need more time, but also saying, you know, if this was a class, we would be continuing next session, or encouraging our students to finish that piece before you go home, right? To kind of keep that voice with you. We want to give you all a few moments to add to that resource document. I know we are just coming back together, but it continues to take a few moments to add to that resource document so we can collect our thoughts together and share them out. And as we bring this to a close, we're going to be reflecting on art as activism. What can we do with student work projects, and what are other ways we can use activism in online classrooms? We've been writing that as resources, but feel also free to put more ideas into the chat box. Again, we are putting a collective resource together and sharing out with each other. More ways that we can reflect and raise activists inside our classroom is literary responses plus social activism. I've just been using literary genres as a launching off point lately, looking at how we can design protests through our own words, but just using literary devices as that launching off point. You will find the Art of Powerful Messaging on page 30 of your packet, and that really just shows how we can use literary elements, literary techniques, and then also different man versus nature, man versus the world, and different concepts to kind of talk about social issues. So please look out for that. We also encourage you to raise the voice of different artists, of color, and cultural icons. Raising voices of activists inside and outside the classroom is just having students pick topics to explore together. Students picking the authors and artists they want to explore. You know, first, again, building that list of artists that they know together. And then you can also introduce them to artists as well, and then making that choice as a group of what artists you can explore, and setting aside for both individual and collaborative work around student-driven things. So Again, you all had a chance to write individually, then you also had a chance to discuss collectively and had a chance to do collaborative pieces. Outside the classroom, thinking about in this online spaces, how we can invite friends and families and others in the community into our online events. Thinking about and having them have their brothers or sisters join them while we are sharing. Having students to create a hashtag that they can use as a group to amplify their work and raises their awareness. And the last is guest artists. We believe in the power of the guest artists, and most specifically, guest artists as an experience, as a tool of inquiry. We all have different passions. We all have different things that we practice. Bringing these guest artists inside the classroom around certain topics, inviting local leaders to the digital classrooms to speak with our students as well, just for that inquiry and also exposure to different works. As we are going to look at, as we say, the purpose of education is to create in a person the ability to look at the world for him or herself and to make his own decisions, right? We encourage you to do that as a way of gathering resources. We just want to collectively acknowledge that for a moment of some of the resources that we are gathering. And again, please find, if you are still adding to it, please find the moments to do so. Katie, if you want to shout out anything.
You're not, someone's not sure what number breakout room they were in.
I got her. I messaged her.
Okay, great. Just checking. Yeah, so if your group hasn't written in the documents, we really encourage you to. I see some folks are kind of, if I understand correctly, that you are creating some community poems as your collaborative project. Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, we are going to do the teacher moment where you peek over your shoulders and see what you're working on. And this is kind of shows us a little bit collaborative poetry series come to life. Please feel free to share those. We're going to compile all of our community poems and share them. I think that is one way that we can kind of amplify all of our voices and bring things together. We want to first just think about collectively the last question of what is a citizen, and we kind of examine that through our community poem, right? We want to share, each of you donated a line, and we want to share that out, and then encourage us to throw title suggestions into the chat box. So this is our community poem that we all had a chance to.
And if you didn't get to contribute a line and you'd like to, please message me and I'll add it.
Contribute, and we just want to acknowledge this for a moment.
Do we want to have someone read it? What do you think? Any one line to read it out loud?
I'll do it.
Go for it.
Okay, because the first line is mine. 100 days of quiet. I walk in veiled silence on the street. As if this day would not be followed by another night. Do not say you don't see color. Notice all of me. No longer human, belonging nowhere. My woke is not protester marching. How will you know me? Let's cover ourselves with gauze so there might be a chance. It be your own who make you wonder. What does it mean to talk white? Will you be a responsible citizen? This is a call to order. 40 acres, involving Black rights in advance of public opinion, a call to embrace the past, but look with hope to the future.
Thank you. What a great reading. It's such a lovely voice. Yes, I actually just compiled this in the way that you dropped them into the chat, which, you know, if we were with our students, we'd like go through, do some revision, but I think that it came out, you guys all dropped it in a very lovely order. We were pleasantly surprised. Do we want to go ahead and do title suggestions, Jay?
So there's a natural power behind this voice, and we want to know, what is this title? Please drop some title suggestions, and we want to end thinking about a title for our piece, and also open the floor up to some questions afterwards. So I will hold this here. If you have a title for our piece, please feel free to drop it in the chat.
And I'll say that after Kinsey and Kim do a closing words from the roundtable, Jay and I are going to stay on for a few extra minutes. So if you want to chat or have a question or anything, please feel free to ugh, I can't talk now after an hour and a half. Can you give any advice in putting together the community poem? Absolutely. I mean, one, what we just did is pretty much what I do in class. After students have written a bunch of their individual work, I ask them to go through several of their poems, or one poem if we're doing it on a particular topic like today. And I say, pick your favorite line, pick it. And then we compile them, and then I wait. I compile it into a poem, and then I wait for like many weeks or like a couple of months, and then let them look at it again, because by that point they don't feel so precious about their one line, and they're open to revision and moving things around. That's usually how I do it. I don't know, Jay, do you do anything?
Yeah, that's pretty much like the same approach, and then also like the way we break down a poem to also teach qualities of it. So we might give them a poem, and I might cut a poem into different stanzas and give each group a stanza to read, and then they might get a chance to write their own response, either as a group or individually their own line, then think about a stanza together. And then we bring the stanzas as a group together, so we can order our stanzas and create a community poem. So there's different ways to break it down, either line by line, a stanza, and then also thinking about ways to bring that community poem together. And of course, the time link would be the title as well. So we definitely want to raise attention to that, call action to that. Definitely, we also want to say that we have additional resources there that we just want to bring attention to you before we wrap up. Please feel free to reach out to us if you do have any questions. Please email us, tap@communitywordproject.org. And you will also see things that I like to do as well, like the art of powerful messaging, thinking about literary themes, power to overcome obstacles, pairing those with social topics, and having students write their own powerful haikus, thinking about sonnets, introducing them to Terrace Hayes, and then you can have them do sonnets, and then look at structures, and then have them write their own. So there are ways that we like to invite voices and then community things together. And also the A through Z list of artists and cultural icons of color. We encourage you to create your own with your students, right? To find out the artists that they like, but then also contribute to it as well. So we have those resources there for you. And then also finally, literary activism, our recommended list.
I'll say that, Kinsey, will you email out the Google Drive link? I'll keep it open for everyone here, because I know Paul asked that question. And then
Yes, I'll make sure to include all of the links that have been shared throughout this chat in the follow-up email. It will probably be Monday or Tuesday next week.
And then yes, please use our resources. Like, feel free. I love sharing lessons with teaching artists and swapping resources. So please feel free to use them.
Yeah, that is how we tend to develop a lot of our workshops, just brainstorming with Katie. I get a lot of ideas from Katie. So please use these resources and examples. A lot of the things are linked in the document as well. So like if you click on some of the resources, you might find links to it to purchase it, and then other ways, things as well. So we start off with research from our staff, alums, and then some stuff that we use in our classrooms itself, are tried and true methods. So please feel free to reach out if you have questions as well. And lastly, I will look into the chat to see about titles. We have.
I just saw Citizen Me. I put that at the top, but if somebody else has.
Perfect. I didn't check the chat. Thank
The
you.
other offerings were Links to Another Voice, Will You Be Responsible, My Woke, Answer the Call, and Invisible Me.
I missed one. Links to Another Voice, I think.
Yes.
All right, let's vote real quick. Just put your favorite in the chat, and we'll make our best guess.
The phrase we see the most will be our title. It's the one that we see the most frequent.
Oh man, it's a draw right now.
Citizen.
No poll, sorry, we didn't put one together. It's too last minute. Wow, I think Citizen Me is the winner so far. Yeah. Well, we want to thank you all for coming out, and thank you for participating in our workshop, and thank you, Jay, for facilitating with me. And we'll stick around for a few minutes to answer any questions.
Yeah, so yeah, please, if you still have a vote that you want to add in for the title of that piece, or if you have any questions for our presenters, drop them in the chat. If they can't answer them now, I can follow up with them via email and include those answers in the follow-up email with all the registrants. So I just want to say thank you so much, Jay and Katie, for your time and for sharing these fantastic resources and your expertise. And thank you to all of us, again, who joined us today. Please tune in next week on Thursday, August 13th at 4 p.m. The summer school series continues with The Joy of Art, Community Art Making for the Whole Family, Act 1. So that workshop is going to be a choose your own adventure workshop featuring Broadway-bound kids leading a dance adventure and 3rd Street Music School Settlement leading a music adventure. That workshop will be family friendly, so please bring your young people. Artists of all ages and skill levels are welcome. If you'd like to view the summer series schedule and access recordings of this session next week or any of the previous summer school sessions, you can visit the event website, which I am pasting into the chat right now. Also happening next week, the Roundtable is continuing our In Solidarity Affinity Group series to support actively dismantling the systems of racial oppression in our field and beyond. You can find more information on that series, and you can register for your respective affinity group at the link I'm dropping in the chat right now. Prior attendance is absolutely not required, so if you haven't been a part of it before, it's no time like the present to join us. And finally, I would just like to announce that the Roundtable is so proud that we have established our Arts Educator Emergency Relief Fund. This fund will award one-time unrestricted grants of up to $1,000 to teaching artists and arts education administrators who are facing serious financial hardship due to the COVID-19 crisis. This fund is made possible by the generous support of the New York Community Trust, including funding from their NYC COVID-19 Response and Impact Fund, and also the Booth Ferris Foundation. The application for that fund is going to open on Monday, August 10th, 2020 at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. The fund website is already live. You can view the applications for the fund already on the website, which I'm including right here. And that's it. Sorry for so many announcements, but we're going to leave the call open again for another minute if you'd like to save the chat or drop a question in. And that's about it. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Yes, great. Thank you. Really nice job. I do have a question. I understood today how you took the lines as they came in the chat box. And you also mentioned that, you know, with weeks that you have the kids go over, I guess, what they think the first line should be and onward. I'd like to hear any of your thoughts of, like, if you have one session, you know, or two, like any other ideas of how you decide what lines that they come from their favorite lines of their poems, how you put it in the group poem.
So you're saying only like one session with students if you do that?
Yes, if you have one session or two, you know, so you don't have, you know, you don't have weeks to be discussing this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could do like what we did today, where you start with a free write on a topic and write an individual poem, or not. You can just have them do the free write and take their favorite line from a poem they wrote or that free write and put it into the community poem, and then as a group say like which order all the lines should go in. I like to take lines when we're in person, have students take lines on little strips of paper and move them around. But you can also use a Google Doc like we did and have students edit them. Jay, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I'm big on sentence strips. Even behind me is a huge sentence strip wall. So I would invite students to free write and then donate that one line on a sentence strip. What I also do is encourage them to, whenever they are ready, to bring that line up, and then encourage the other students to place their line where they think it will respond to next, right? So it can kind of like, everyone's not jumping in at it once. You find your line. You can also leave a space if you think a line could go before you. So giving students an option of placement. And then finally, at the end of it, give them a chance, what is a final revision you might want to make as well. So that is kind of usually the approach I do when I do library workshops, because they're only 1 hour, and just giving them like a quick, immediate choice of where they want to place their line in response to someone else, and then finalizing with, is this the poem we want to finish with?
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, I think I'll leave it open for about 20 or 30 more seconds, and then we will end the meeting.
If anyone else has questions, our email is at the end of the slideshow, so please reach out to us. Thank you.